guys, for today's video I'm just going to be talking to you. I'm going to be giving you a guide on how to go from not doing anything on track all the way up to doing amateur racing on track. I had someone specifically request this video. I am so sorry it has taken this long to get this video up, but because of scheduling and where I had videos in order and school and everything, it was a little bit difficult to work it in, so it's finally here. And with coronavirus going on right now, no one is club racing. They're just starting to get back with club racing now, so you're definitely going to miss the rest of this season, but at least you guys can start working your way towards that in the future. I'm going to try and start from step 1 and then all the way up to right where you start club racing, which is where I'll be at as I get out of PA school. So we'll start with step 1. You can dip your toes into the water one of two different ways. You can either start with a simple track day, or you can start with autocross. It kind of depends on your comfort level, how much you trust your car, you know, where you're at. Some places have a lot of autocross opportunities, some places don't. Some places have a lot of track opportunities, some don't. It just depends on how committed you are. You know, a track day, like Track Night in America, is going to cost you about $165. You're going to get 60 minutes of seat time. An autocross is going to cost you maybe $40 to $60, depending on what region you're in. And you're going to get maybe 6 to 10 minutes of seat time. So you're getting a lot less seat time. Your car is being pushed for a lot less time, and it's being pushed not quite to as high as a level. So if you're just taking a very regular car with minimum prep and you're trying to decide if that's what you want to do with it, if you want to start putting some money into it, it's a good place to start. I'm not a huge fan of autocross because, again, you're only going for 30 to 60 seconds at a time. You're going to be there for at least, I would budget, over half the day. So if it's a Saturday, you're not going to be done until like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, because you got everybody goes in one session, and then you're the person who's watching, and you're like the marshals and working the course, and then you switch and your half goes and does the driving, and the people who were driving before are now the marshals. Sometimes it's 2 groups, sometimes it's 4, so you might get lucky and get to leave a little early, or you might be stuck there the entire time. Either way, you're only going to be driving for maximum, I would say, 8 times around, maybe 10 minutes of seat time. And if it's not right close to your house and you're driving 1 or 2 hours to get there, you're spending a lot of time and effort and money to do this for not a whole lot of seat time. So anyway, step 1. Go out there, figure out if you actually want to do this. Once you've gotten past autocrosses, or if you want to skip that and go straight to track days, Track Night in America is a great way to dip your toe into track days. It's not a huge financial burden. It's only 3 sessions, so if you're worried about, can my car handle this, you only have 3 sessions you're committing to, and if you only do 2 sessions, you're not losing that much time or money by doing it. Whereas if you sign up for a whole weekend and you're spending $400 or $500, that's a lot of money to lose. That's a lot of pushing a car that you don't even know if it can handle it yet. So Track Night in America is good. There's a lot of different options. They run like 100 of them a year. They'll have like 4 or 5 different days for each track, and they have a ton of different tracks all over the United States. So it's a really good way to get started. Once you go from there, there's dozens and dozens of different organizations that are more regional that put on track days. So like the one I use in the South is Just Track It. It's no nonsense. Prices are pretty low. They have a lot of different tracks. They have a lot of actual seat time. You get 5 sessions per day. So you're getting, anywhere from 3 to 4.5 hours on track, depending on how long the sessions are for that track. So you're getting a lot of time for your money. But once you move out of track days and you decide, all right, I need to find an organization I want to run with, you have 2 options for organizations, really. You have SCCA and NASA. Now, underneath that, you also have B&W Car Club of America. You have people like Porsche Car Club of America. They do a lot of races on their own. It depends on what region you're in, on how active they are. So like in the South, not a huge thing. Out in California, Porsche Club is huge and doing all sorts of stuff. They're just as big as NASA and SCCA out there. It just depends on where you're at. So find out what's big in your region, and once you do that, you can start going to track days while they're having racing. So to give you an example of how a NASA weekend works, in this one weekend, you have people doing HPDE, which is high performance driving education, which is just track days. You have people doing time trials, which is like a time attack where you have 20 minutes to get one fast lap in. Your fastest lap is the only one that counts. And then you have just normal door-to-door racing, and that's kind of the tier that you're going up. You have track days where you really have very minimal safety requirements. You have time attack, gets a little bit more serious. You have to prove you've got a little bit more competency. And then you have door-to-door racing where you're going to need a roll cage and everything that goes along with that, of a Hans device, proper helmet, fire suit, fire system, all that stuff. Big financial requirements to get into that. So it's nice to work your way up the ladder and decide, is this something I'm still committed to, and is this something I want to spend all my time and money on? Within HPDE, most groups will have 3 or 4 different tiers. So it's going to be beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Sometimes intermediate is broken into 1 and 2. So you might have HPDE 1, 2, 3, or 4. It just depends on how they want to do it. And you're working your way through, and they provide different levels of education as you go. So beginner, you're starting out with basic stuff. What do the flags mean? You know, how to figure out your racing line, all sorts of little stuff. Working your way all the way up to HPDE 3 and 4, where they're doing drills for certain sessions where you're driving side by side with someone and getting used to having someone next to you while you're going through a turn. You're trying to figure out, can I drive through this turn offline and still competently handle the turn? So a turn you're used to taking one certain way, you go offline, you still go with that person, you don't cause any accidents. They're just slowly working you towards eventually going to comp school, which is short for competition school. And different groups do it different ways. There are schools that you can go to, so you can do like a 2 or 3 day weekend competition school. They're very expensive, but they're also much more hands-on. You're going to learn a lot, but you're budgeting anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000. It just depends on how intense of a situation you want. Is it bring your own car? Are they providing a car? You've got a lot of different options if you want to get really serious about it. For example, NASA, they'll have it on a Friday before a track weekend. You show up, they have other drivers there who already have competition license, and they will drive around with you. They'll try to get up on your bumper, they'll try to pass you, you'll try to pass them. They're just watching to see, can you handle being in a situation with other drivers and being safe? It's not how fast can you go. I mean, you need to show some competence that you can, lap at a good pace, but they're not trying to see if you're the fastest guy out there. They just want to see, do you act predictably? Do you act safe? Do they want to drive on a racetrack with you at the same time? And if that's the case, then you'll get a beginner's competition license. So different people call it different things. It just depends on what club you're in. But basically, it's like you're on probation. So you have your competition license, but they're watching you closely to see, are you doing, again, what they expect? Are you doing, proper car control? You're not causing any problems. You're not causing accidents. If there's an incident and it's not you, are you following the flags properly? That's all they want to see. And that might last for one race weekend. It might last for one race season. It just depends on what organization you're with, which again is kind of the whole theme of this, is you can get to competition 15, 20, 100 different ways. It just kind of depends on where you're at, what your budget is, how much time do you have. I've been doing track days for 5 years and am still hanging out in the advanced group and dipping my toe into time trials and stuff, but I can't do door to door until I put a cage in the car. And cages cost a lot of money, and I'm in school right now, so we're gonna have to do that when we get out of school. So it's just a money commitment, a time commitment. If you have a car with a cage in it, you can't drive it on the street anymore. You're gonna have to have somewhere to store it. You're gonna have to have some way of getting it to the track, whether you're flat towing it, or you've got a trailer, or if it's a time trial car and you can still drive it to and from work and you can kind of do double duty with it, but then you're trying to balance, do I want really good brake pads that stop really well and work at really high temperatures, or do I want brake pads that don't squeak and put out a ton of brake dust? And then you've got the balance of, if you're swapping parts at the track and you're swapping out wheels and tires and brake pads and all sorts of things at the track, it's just a lot more of you to deal with in a weekend, and eventually you're going to get maybe burnt out on that. I did that for a while, and having a dual purpose car, I mean, it's just a lot of work when you're at the track. So it really kind of takes away from the weekend. You can't relax as much. And of course, if you damage that car and that's the car that you drive to work on Monday, you're kind of in trouble. So, you have to decide, do I have room and budget for a second car? Do I have room for a second car but is literally only used for track days? So a lot to consider as you're going through, but to give a really concise and realistic timeline of going from absolute novice, no experience, this is your first track day. Let's say you start in February, it's the South, you have track days in January and February. So you have one at the end of January, that's your first track day. You're going to be in a novice group, I would say at least for 5 track days. So that's, 3 full weekends or 5, 4, 5, 6 single day events. You want to be in the novice group. They'll have an instructor for you, take advantage of that, run through, learn the basics, work your way into intermediate. You can be intermediate for a little while after that, 1 and 2. It just kind of depends on the group again. Once you get up into like HPDE 3 or intermediate 2, whatever they want to call it, that's where you're getting a little bit more serious. You've got 10 to 12 days under your belt. Again, you could do, I would say max 20 track weekends a year, I would say is realistic. I mean, that's almost every other weekend. So that is a lot. So you're not going to make it to competition in your first year. First year of doing track days, you should just be ending in HPDE 3 and then starting in advanced your second year. Now, once you hit advanced or HPDE 3, you can go to comp school and you can kind of hurry all this, but the faster you go, the faster you jump into the deep end. It's going to be a very long struggle of first day of racing until you're actually competing in the field. So, it's kind of how hard of a struggle do you want to have as soon as you jump into racing, or do you want to jump in and you can be a little competitive, maybe be fighting for top 10, things like that on day 1. It just depends on how hard you want to make this on yourself. So let's say we're starting year 2, you do a couple of events in advance until a weekend comes up with a comp school. So for NASA in the Southeast, they do 2 comp schools per year. I think it's in April and September, I think. So let's say you did one in January and in March you did track day and then did comp school in April. Once you do comp school and they sign off on you, you can start racing. So realistically, 1.5 years from day 1 to racing, that's how you would do it at NASA. I'm not as familiar with SCCA. I've done their time trial events and their track days, but I haven't done their door-to-door racing. My understanding of it is NASA is a little bit more grassroots than the SCCA guys. The SCCA guys get a little bit more serious, bigger budgets, faster cars. The classing is a little bit more strict, whereas the NASA seems to be a little bit more open. They're very different, so look at the rules before you decide on what tree you want to start climbing. Look at what car do you have, what type of car do you want to build, what do you see yourself in. Are you going to do spec Miata where all the cars are exactly the same? You have a very clear formula. You build the car, you go race it. The only thing that matters really is you. I mean, the car matters some, but for the most part, the variable is you. Or do you want something like the Super Touring class in NASA where rules are wide open, only thing that matters is power to weight. As long as you're in those ranges they provide, you can build whatever car you want, whether it's a Mazda Miata with an engine swap, or if it's a stock Corvette or a Porsche, or front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive, anything you can dream of, you can fit it into that class. So it really depends on what car do you have, what do you want to do with it, where are you going to be competitive, what's competitive in that class. You've got a lot of variables. I would definitely recommend poring over the rules. Everyone has their rules listed up for free. Download the PDF. Just look at every detail. Figure out where you want to be, what you think you can afford. Of course, there's Facebook groups and forums that you can join, so you can ask questions. You can say, hey, I've done this, this, and this. Can you guys point me in the right direction of who I need to talk to about my next step? If you go to one of their track day weekends, like at a NASA weekend, because you have the racers there at the same time you're there, if they're doing HPDE 4, and they're doing racing that weekend, so they have extra seat time, you can hop in their passenger seat right in their car. You can ask them questions. You can be like, hey, I have a Corvette, you have a Corvette. What did you do to your car? What do you recommend? You can ask them these things, and they love to talk about it because racing is what they do. They spend a lot of time and money on this. They love to talk about it. So unless they're, prepping their car and about to go out and look super busy, you can always approach somebody and ask them, be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I can come back later, but I'd love to talk to you about it. And then your instructors and the whole staff there, they want to help you. They want you to come back because as long as you keep coming back, they can keep doing what they love too. So it's a really great community. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Of course, you can ask me questions. I am by far not an expert, but I mean, I at least know where I've been, where I'm going, what I've done. So it doesn't hurt to ask. But yeah, ask questions, go slow, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't think you're just going to wake up one morning and be Fernando Alonso. It doesn't work like that. It takes a lot of time and effort. Unlike some other sports, on this one, if you get ahead of yourself and you outdrive your car, you can hurt yourself or someone else. Obviously, take it seriously, take it slow, take advantage of instructors while you've got them for free because they are expensive after that. Yeah, I think that's all I've got. So if you guys have any questions about how to go from not driving your car fast to racing your car, of course, drop those in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next week.